Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it. We love to ski. I live in Ohio, and I did grow up skiing. I probably got on a ski lift for the first time when I was in eighth grade. So I've been skiing for quite some time, and my husband started skiing when he was a kid. We probably got our kids on skis for the first time at 11 and 13 years old. We wanted to get them on skis sooner, but I had knee surgery, so we took a little longer to do that than we wanted to. My husband's parents did not ski, but his brothers snowboard. And then my dad skied, and he introduced it to my mom, and he introduced it to me. It's probably not something as a kid that I would have explored on my own. Obviously, there's a learning curve. When I was a kid, like my learning curve was, we went up to Bristol Mountain. I don't know if you know where that is, to go see family. And my dad put me on a ski lift, and at the top, like it was, we call it a yard sale, like when you fall off and everything. Yeah. So that's how I learned. Growing up, it was always with my family, my mom, my dad, my brother. As I got older, some of my friends were very into skiing. So it feels like in college, like we always knew somebody that had a condo somewhere. So I kind of grew up, so to speak, skiing in Breckenridge with a big group of college friends. My brother ended up moving out to Breckenridge. He's a big snowboarder. So we gravitate towards Colorado when we go out of state. I have skied in Connecticut and Vermont, and New Mexico, but as a family, we tend to gravitate towards Colorado. But now that I have kids, usually it's me and the kids. Actually, I found out I was pregnant on Breckenridge Mountain. And
Nice.
that was yeah. So that was my husband calls it the most expensive run ever. Because we didn't know until like, yeah, I thought like a greasy hamburger might make me feel better. Maybe it was the altitude. Nope. Jake was on the way. So it was interesting that the very first trip we ever took the kids on, very first time they ever got on skis, they chose snowboarding, was on Breckenridge Mountain. So we went back to the scene of the crime. So, but now it's with the four of us. Now I will say that we discovered Steamboat, and we super love it, and it's easy. It's ski in, ski out. So this will be our fourth year doing a Steamboat spring break with our family and my husband's brother and his family. So there's 8 of us, 7 of us ski, but 8 of us go out every year now. So it's kind of tradition.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
that pretty much started from local ski club too.
Yeah.
So actually between your local trips and then also your out west trips, about how many times do you ski over a season?
So me and my husband probably only need a couple, but it's, work and commitments and all that stuff. But the kids, gosh, 10, 12 times a year. Yeah. So we would love to go more. And my husband's threatening to retire. So we're going to have a little more time on our hands
Hmm.
than we're used to. So we're anticipating, I can't imagine we wouldn't go out there 2, 3, 4 times a year, depending, once he retires. So.
Now, last season, did you ski as much as in the past? Did the weather have any impact? Does what happened last season affect you wanting to do things this season?
So last season, we actually had a good season for us. I think we hit the weather perfectly out west. It was bitter cold in Ohio. So but the kids are fairly resilient, right? So where we are all huddled with the instructors and the chaperones in the lodge, the kids were out there. Like they were giving them like the heating pads and changing out wet socks and all that stuff. So they don't seem to mind it as much as the adults do. So that won't deter us from this year. I think there were a couple of years where I think my husband and his brothers had a place in Lake Tahoe, and the weather, there was no snow that year, and it's been a few years, but there was literally no snow. They were closing down the slopes. No, it did make him a little gun shy the next year, like, oh, okay, maybe we shouldn't book so far in advance, or something non-refundable. So we learned that lesson. But overall, no, I mean, we would still go.
Still
Yeah.
do the trip, but go somewhere else, like a warm weather destination?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, actually, it's funny because when the kids started skiing, they loved it so much. And then the next year they're like, yeah, we want to go back out to Colorado for spring break. And I'm like, oh, but could we go on a cruise, like somewhere warm? But with kids' sports and all that, we only have so much time. So they want out, and I also want them to have that experience. So while I would love to sit on a beach with a cocktail, we end up getting up at 8 o'clock in the morning and hitting the slopes, and it's been great. It's been great. So I can't complain. I'm very fortunate. My husband super loves skiing and he loves everybody being together. So a lot of times we'll just book what we want and then we'll just complain about the price later. So that's kind of how our family operates. I know a lot of families don't. We're fortunate enough that, you know, we can invest in this experience for our kids. But I hear that a lot from many families, and there are other families that we travel with that are on very different budgets than we are. For us, I want my kids to have that experience, and I've gone with them on the ski club trips that go up to snow trails and help chaperone and that sort of thing a couple of times. Just from a safety standpoint, I just wanted to be there. I think one thing people don't realize, and I've noticed with parents, that they don't realize that, hey, when you sign up for a ski club, like that's great, but then you also have other expenses that aren't just the ticket. So you're either renting equipment or buying equipment for your child. I think it's our transportation fee is $75 for the season, and that has to be paid up front before you're even allowed to secure your spot with the ski club. And then, you know, usually it's anywhere between $8 and $20 per kid, because they all want to go through the snack line, right? So I've bought, you know, some pizzas for the chaperones, that sort of thing. So there are costs involved that aren't just the lift ticket. So, and I do hear people when they look at the total, they're like, ooh, they didn't realize.
So if you're gonna plan your big out west ski trip, you know, what kind of budget do you usually try to have to set aside for that?
So usually it's the four of us plus my husband's brother and his family. So there's seven of us that ski, eight of us that go. And when last couple of times we've gone to Steamboat, it's well over $20,000. It's a lot. Yeah. For local, and I can mostly speak to the ski club because that's my experience. When I've been chaperoning with the kids, especially for, and I can't speak to other locations, but especially for snow trails, I definitely feel like the parking drop off situation might be broken. We have 5 buses, so when we pull in, I'm chaperoning a bus and each of the teachers are chaperoning a bus, or if there's a parent volunteer, and the buses line up. And we know what we're doing. So we've been there before. This will be our 3rd year in ski club. So we hit the ground running, we put our stuff on, we go to the lodge, we know how this works. There's some kids that are either new to skiing or they've never been to this particular resort before. And it's, none of the other parents go on the teachers and those chaperones. So I do have concerns about the safety in this parking lot. So the kids don't really know where to go. They just kind of like stop. And then the bus drivers go. The chaperones try to gather everybody together, but they're going, like this kid needs to go to the ski school and this kid needs to go find a locker and this kid needs to. So you've got, gosh, 130, 150 kids getting off of 5 buses, and they're all crossing across this dark parking lot, and there's no organization to the parking lot. So I do get concerned about these kids, because sometimes if you're walking in 10 groups of 10, 8, whatever, the cars see you. But I told my daughter, I said, do not cross that parking lot alone, even with another friend. Like, people are so worried about getting home at 9:30 at night and all that stuff. They're not paying attention to kids crossing. So for me, the best thing that they could do is have some sort of better organization to drop off and pick up with ski club. Like, could they drop the kids off right at the front door, let them get ready, let them go in, then the buses park, right? And like, hey, at pickup time, the buses are all going to be in a line. Nobody has to cross this parking lot with all their stuff. I told my husband that I was going to do this, and he said his 2 biggest pain points in general is getting food during lunch and lift lines. He said those are probably the two biggest pain points, especially when we're going with kids, because kids don't have a lot of patience. Now, depending on where we go in Colorado, you could have like 0 lift lines, or you can have very painful lift lines. So I think those are probably two pain points for us that we try to avoid when it comes to ski trips. And those are things that probably weigh in for us maybe more than others.
Any of these places that you've been, do they have your contact info? Do they know who you are? Like, do they market to you?
So Steamboat does. No, they don't have my information, but they have my brother-in-law's information, and he's the one that books it. So he does get emails. Now Epic passes I will get things from Epic. But not a lot. Every now and then I will start to get some things from Snow Trails too. I do get some marketing from them. You know, you talk about like what would make the experience better. People love free stuff, like they just do. So one idea that I had was like all this ski club stuff that we do, the kids are totally into it. Like how neat would it be if it came with a family 4-pass? Like, hey, get your family up there. Like normally we wouldn't do that, right? Or if we didn't have the time, but if there was a family 4-pass that like a one-time family 4-pass that came on a weekend that we could take the kids up there, maybe we'd be like, wow, we should do this more often. You know, when we're choosing a resort in general, it's, you know, how easy is it? Like, is it, you know, we like ski in, ski out. We like having separate bedrooms. You know, when we go out west, we love when there's a couple of rooms with bunk beds because the boys will go in one and the girls go in another, but the parents have their own space. But when it's local, you know, we're not staying overnight. We're typically going there and back. Now, having said that, if it was on a weekend and there was, you know, a close place to stay up there, you know, maybe we would make an overnight trip of it. So those are just our thoughts.